We build gilded cages for ourselves and call them success. My name is Elijah Reid, and I lived inside one for far too long. At 39, I had the dream resume, global consultant, top clients, the kind of apartment that overlooked the city instead of belonging to it. I wore tailored suits, carried 2 phones, and spoke in currencies, not languages. But every night, after the meetings, the flights, the laughter that wasn't mine, I'd come home, hang up the suit, and listen to the hum of silence between the walls. That silence didn't comfort me. It accused me. Because deep down I knew I wasn't living, I was performing success. It all started with a tremor, a heartbeat that was just a little too fast. At first I blamed the espresso, then the lack of sleep. But one morning, standing in a boardroom, watching numbers climb across a screen, my world blurred. Voices faded into a distant hum. The air thinned. I clutched my chest as my knees gave out. Someone shouted. Another called an ambulance. At the hospital, the doctor said it gently, the way you speak to someone on the edge. It's not your heart, it's your life. The diagnosis was a panic-induced collapse. The prescription? Rest. But how do you rest from a life that owns you? That night, sitting in the hospital parking lot, I stared at my reflection in the windshield. My face looked like someone I used to know, and for the first time, I whispered to no one in particular. If I stopped saying yes to everything, would anyone still need me? A week later, I just disappeared. No notice, no messages. I just drove north, past the suburbs, past the towers, past the last bar of cell signal. I drove until I reached a cabin my late father had left me, untouched for years, smelling of pine and dust. There was no Wi-Fi, no calls, just trees. That first night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of wood, every gust of wind felt like the city calling me back. I reached for my phone out of habit, but there was no signal. For the first time in over a decade, I was unreachable. And that terrified me. The silence wasn't peace yet. It was a confrontation. It showed me all the noise I'd been carrying inside. In that stillness, I started to remember all the times I'd said yes. Yes to projects I hated because I was scared of being forgotten. Yes to dinners I didn't want to attend because I feared being rude. Yes to loans I couldn't afford because I was afraid of losing friends. I realized I wasn't being generous. I was just afraid. The truth finally hit me, delivered in the smallest of betrayals. A colleague I'd mentored for years closed a deal behind my back. When I confronted him, he just shrugged and said, "You always say yes, Elijah. It's your job." That night I sat by the cabin window, rain falling hard outside. The betrayal wasn't his, it was mine. I had trained the entire world to expect my obedience. A week into my retreat, a single message managed to get through. "Urgent client meeting next week. We need you back." My thumb hovered over the keyboard. The word yes was right there, a reflex waiting to fire, but something in my chest clenched, not with fear, but with resistance. I typed a single word, "No." Then I stared at it. It looked so small, so harmless. But my hands were shaking. My heart raced, and my breath came in shallow bursts, as if the word itself was forbidden. I pressed send, and in that moment there was silence again, but this time it wasn't emptiness, it was space. The next morning my phone rang. It was Clara, my former partner, the one who left 2 years ago because, in her words, "You're always everywhere but here." She'd heard about my breakdown. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah, just taking time." "You? Taking time?" She let out a dry laugh. "Elijah, you don't rest. You reload." I wanted to tell her everything about the panic, the silence, the cabin, but the words got stuck. "You're lucky," she said finally. "Some of us don't get to run away." And then, click. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my hand trembling slightly, but for the first time I didn't chase the conversation. I realized some endings don't need closure. They just need quiet. Slowly, the city began to fade from my bloodstream. Days became gentler. I chopped wood, made coffee, read old books. The air smelled of rain instead of deadlines. But healing isn't a straight line. Some mornings, I'd wake up in a panic, feeling like I was wasting precious time. Other days, I wept for no reason, grieving for a self I had outgrown. But something sacred was unfolding. The more I said no to the world, the more I said yes to my own soul. I discovered that minimalism isn't about having empty rooms. It's about emptying your life of what no longer serves your peace. I stopped replying to every message. I stopped explaining my silence. I stopped performing care for people who only noticed me when I was useful. Instead, I began asking one simple question before every choice. Does this bring me peace or just approval? Most of the time, the answer was painful. But the truth often is. I used to think that saying no was selfish. Now I see it as sacred. Each no is a boundary, an invisible fence protecting what is still alive within you. To say no to the noise is to say yes to clarity. To say no to expectation is to say yes to authenticity. To say no to the world's constant hunger is to finally feed your own soul. Boundaries aren't rejection. They are recognition of where your peace begins. When I finally returned to the city, everything looked the same, but it all felt different. The towers still shone, the streets still rushed, but I no longer moved to their rhythm. At the office, people stared at me like I was a ghost who had come back speaking a language they'd forgotten. I smiled. I worked slower, spoke less. I listened more. Some called it burnout recovery. But I knew it was a rebirth. I sold the expensive watch, moved to a smaller place. I began each morning with stillness instead of scrolling through my phone. And for the first time, when someone asked for too much, I didn't explain myself. I simply said, no. Peace doesn't come when life gets easier. It comes when you stop betraying yourself. I searched for belonging, and I found it not in a place, but in a choice. Home is not where you were born, nor where success resides. It's where you no longer fear the honesty of your own boundaries, and where you have earned the sacred right to choose peace. Before leaving the cabin for the last time, I left a note on the table. It said, "This place didn't give me peace. It only gave me back the silence where peace had always lived." I left the door unlocked for whoever might need it next, because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more people brave enough to be quiet. Thank you for listening to my story. If this resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more content about finding peace in a noisy world. Take care.